Good evening. Welcome to the September 24th Budget Finance Committee meeting. First order of business is to elect a chair and vice chair for the upcoming budget cycle. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Bob Goslin as chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
I'll move nomination cease.
Nominations are ceased. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Thank you, guys. This time we will elect a vice chair for our upcoming budget cycle. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Kevin Oliver as vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations?
Surprise.
I'll move nomination cease.
Nominations cease. All those in favor of Kevin, vice chair? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. Thank you. Next order of business is to discuss and select a time and day that we will be meeting throughout this budget cycle. In the past, we have met on Tuesday evenings at 6:30. Are there any conflicts with that time frame if we continued in that format?
I don't see any.
I mean, I can make it work. Tuesdays are days that I'm more often out of town,
Okay.
but we don't meet, enough where I couldn't make that work.
Okay.
So if it works good for everybody else, I can do it.
Karen, that work for you? 6:30 on Tuesday evenings? Okay, very good. Then let it be written.
Tuesday, 6:30.
Tuesdays at 6:30, and the budget schedule will be coming out once that's developed. Next order of business is to discuss our members' desire to participate remotely. I have seen several communications on this, and I guess I will ask for Sue to disseminate the information that's been going out in terms of remote participation.
Okay, I haven't been party to all the communications, I've only seen a few, so I'm not sure I'm the
Well,
proper person to do that.
If I may, I
Please.
assume you go by Robert's rules.
Yes.
Robert's rules state if it's in your bylaws, you can do it. If it's not in your bylaws, you can't do it.
Okay, and you do have a copy of our bylaws?
Yes,
And does it indicate whether or not we can do that remotely?
No, it's silent.
what it says under membership, quorum, and voting, section 6, on letter E, this or Kevin will holler at me, is that the Budget Finance Committee shall officially act only in the presence of a quorum of 4 voting members. Official motions will pass only on a majority vote of all voting members of the Budget Finance Committee unless the Budget and Finance Committee unanimously votes to adopt other rules at their first meeting of the year after the annual meeting and agrees to utilize the revised voting procedure for the full year.
The select board in their September 17th meeting, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to watch that, changed their bylaws to take out, they allowed remote participation, they took it out at their September 17th meeting. Without getting into personal opinions on the issue, the chair's reasoning was the state hasn't done anything with this, there's no state statute, therefore let's wait for the state. I think that's a fair summary. But what I'd like to, with the chair's permission, is to tell you exactly where that stands. In the MMA Legislative Bulletin of May 2019, the bill that we're looking at is called LD 1183. To be clear, it was tabled on June 12th, okay? It did not come out of committee for vote. Without getting into all the background, which you can just go online and read, the bill is coming with the support of what they call Maine's Right to Know Advisory Committee, okay, and this is through Public Affairs, FOIA, the Attorney General's office. So this came out, and you can find more background information in their 2019 annual report. But if you go on, I'm sorry I didn't highlight this. There were 4 or 5 conditions that are contained in the legislation. One of the things I thought was interesting is the sponsor of the bill acknowledged the hypocrisy of that view given that the ability of legislators, and we're talking state level, to cast votes at the committee level from remote locations or under certain circumstances by proxy, even after missing hearings and work sessions. They rejected the outright restriction and moved on to LD 83. 5 basic statewide parameters will apply to technological participation in public meetings by members of local public bodies. First, as noted above, the constituents of the body will be required to authorize at the local level. Now, this is interesting, likely either through a town meeting or referendum, the body to adopt its remote participation policy. Second, no policies may allow remote participation in executive session, and votes may not be cast remotely on issues just discussed in executive session. Third, a quorum is required for public bodies with 3 or fewer members. At least one member of the body must be physically present at the location identified in the meeting notice. Fourth, all members must be physically present during at least one public proceeding per year. And fifth and finally, municipalities and counties are authorized to impose stricter limits or total prohibitions on remote participation. And it goes on and on about, you know, some of the philosophy behind that. I had conversations with the FOIA folks, and as I said, this is directly from their recommendation, and they weren't optimistic anything would happen in the upcoming session, because there's a lot of stuff going on, but maybe the year after. And they told me it's a question of if not when. So that's what's really happening on the state level. As we have just discussed, this body, and as the select board kind of punted it back to us, they've changed their bylaws, but indicated that it was up to us to deal with ours. So that's where we stand.
All right. One thing about remote participation is that if you were a member that qualified the quorum and you became disconnected from our meeting, there and foremost, and going forward, our meeting would have to be.
I think that a physical quorum must be present.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Actually, Sam Gifford offered that at the select board meeting. Good practice, and if you go, there are other towns in Maine and 36 states that already do this. Good practice says you should have a physical quorum present, and only then could you enter.
Extend that.
Exactly. That way you don't run into that particular problem.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Do we know why the select board changed the way they had it? Was it not working?
They removed verbiage from their bylaws.
I think they really hadn't thought about it in any real detailed way. That's brought it to the fore. You know, they did some research and reached the decision that they did for the reasons that they outlined, you know, present uncertainty, waiting for some state guidance. So I don't think it had been something they had thought about. And I don't know if we've ever used it. Have we ever used it?
Just once when Teresa was
once.
sick.
Yeah, and I think what Ralph was presenting were the recommendations that I actually gave to him. So you saw that email where I went through some of the legislative history. And, you know, again, you can say discretion is the better part of valor, I guess. 2 select board members came up with totally different reasons. One is that if someone chooses not to be at a meeting, that's their personal choice and we shouldn't accommodate it. The other reason is that by doing that, you're denying an opportunity to someone else in town to take up the particular position. I'd like to point out this committee by ordinance was reduced from 11 to 7 because we couldn't fill 11 positions. And
Partly because we didn't have the purview of the school anymore.
yeah, and the other thing is we had 2 members be elected by 30 votes of a write-in campaign. We continue to struggle to fill appointed committees. I don't think public participation denial is a very valid reason here in Raymond. The other reason is that one select board member felt that I was elected to sit here, okay? Again, that select board member, and most of us run unopposed. So I'm not sure, those are personal issues, not town policy issues. I respect personal opinions, I happen to disagree with them. I think the reality of today is, particularly if you want to get younger people involved, that you're going to have to find some compromise in this particular area. As I said today, state legislative committees, I'm on a statewide task force through the governor's office. We do it remotely all the time. So, you know, it's a question of, I think, good practice and, quite honestly, the ability of the public to participate. As you know, our first meetings are really just sitting here and listening. There's really there's no vote, no decisions, no anything taken. We basically have one meeting where we get to say the workshop, which also doesn't allow public participation, that we get to vote in. So I don't find that as a valid reason. And that's pretty much our work, listening in one meeting that the public isn't even allowed input into. So I don't think we're denying the public anything. Again, I think part of it was the assumption by the select board members regarding the request that it would include the entire budget session. The only request that was made to our chair is what is our policy. So I think there's a lot of assumptions about the member requests and their plans without ever talking to the member, which I find, again, disingenuous, quite honestly. So, you know, that's kind of my full discussion of it. And again, our own FOIA people and MMA support LD 1183, which is now back to a committee, and hopefully we move forward legislation with those conditions. I would recommend we do those conditions with the addition of physical quorum. I'm done.
Any other discussion?
Crystal?
Crystal?
Is this being brought up just to have it done one time remotely or all the time remotely?
Remote participation has to, or any absence has to be requested of the chair each and every meeting.
Okay.
But
So
it would be,
necessarily be, so it could be all the time.
will it be
It
all
could-
the time
it could
through
be.
the full budget cycle to a vote?
I haven't, based on what's been going on, I haven't made that decision. Honestly, that was not my intent. My intent was, I'm the member, okay? My intent was, yeah. Well, if you listen to the select board meeting, you would have no doubt about that. But my intention was to be here for all voting meetings. But given the animosity that I continue to experience from the select board, I'm not sure if even this is worth my time to be, and that's just being brutally honest.
Yeah, Joe.
I still go back, your bylaws don't speak on it. That piece of legislation has been carried over, which means it will probably die in committee next session. And I do know something about the legislative process, so, you know, you don't have it in your bylaws, it's not specifically allowed. Roberts is clear on it. If it's not in your bylaws, and you say you run by Robert's rules,
No, we don't.
we don't.
Yes, we do.
Show me where it is in our bylaws. The select board does.
Well, I think most town committees run
I'm
by
just
Robert's
saying,
rules.
if we're going to be
I'm
specific,
assuming
we're
that
going
we
to be
run.
specific. It is not, I think it's a gentleman's agreement, and we have, but it's not in the ordinance. That's all I'm saying.
Well, for me, remote participation, and, I mean, I can tell you the boards I serve on, we don't allow it. because it's clunky, there's hesitation, it's hard to have a good conversation, you know.
Are these profit or non-profit boards?
They're state boards.
Okay. Because I use it on state committees and 3 nonprofit boards, and quite honestly, with the right technology, if you're not doing like Skype, there's no problems.
Well, these are governing boards of the state, and we do not, and the state does not allow it on those boards. So.
Dana?
We had a selectman several years ago that went to Colorado for the winter, and the selectmen have a rule that says if you miss more than 3 consecutive meetings, you're done. And he spent all winter in Colorado, in Denver, or wherever he was. But so if we're going to make exceptions for certain people, then we should do it for others. And there was no Skype. He just didn't show up. He left us there, and I got fed up with it. And I think Mr. Bruno remembers that, because I got up when we were only 3 selectmen. I got up and left, and we no longer had a quorum. And that was basically I did that because of he never showed up. And it's like, did they change their rules to let that individual winter in in Colorado for the winter? 3 meetings. We had more than 3 meetings.
But someone would have to challenge it. That's how it's set up.
Yeah, but if
No
we're
one
allowed,
challenged it, so.
if we're allowed to,
Well, see,
well,
that's the approach. I'm sorry. Sorry.
if
Mr. Chair.
if we're gonna allow that to happen in the past, I think with the technology that we have with Skype, I think that we should change our bylaws. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Kevin?
So for what it's worth, I have very limited legislative experience, but I can see the conflict, somebody wanting to join a committee like this, knowing that they're going to miss significant time. But I mean, in this case, we have a member that's already on the committee, and I don't know any of the personal details of how this has arrived, but things have changed mid-term. I think that, your input is valuable. Do we have room to allow the opportunity to maybe take like a vote or change our bylaws so that we can, as a committee, say, okay, this member is already part of the committee for the rest of her term or his term. We will allow this or we won't allow it. How does that
I would
fall
think
into state law?
that state law is silent on all of this. So we can cite others' practices, and we can list the 36 states that do allow it. We can list all the towns in Maine that do allow it, if we so choose. So I think, but to make a bylaw change on an exception, I wouldn't support that, because that's an unintended consequence waiting to come back and bite you in the proverbial behind. Because somebody could say, oh, I never intended to do this, but they did all along. You could have lots of different things. I guess, again, what if we follow the public advisory recommendation and the Maine Municipal Association recommendation on when, if ever, the state of Maine will take this up, because Joe is absolutely right. Forms of this have been kicking around since 2015, okay? And it's never made it to the floor, okay? However, it's been raised for 2 years in the Public Affairs Annual Report. And I think visibility of these kinds of issues may change. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think they will change here in the state of Maine. So, and even the Public Affairs Office said, probably not this session, but next session. Adding the issue of a physical quorum present, which means no matter what happens to anybody that tries to participate remotely, if this is a problem, it doesn't make any difference because you can continue your business. And I'd like to remind the Budget Finance Committee, we only really have, other than, sorry, we do approve minutes, but we only have one voting session for the entire budget cycle, which is once the select board gives us something, we can vote to recommend and not recommend. That's the only thing. The other issue that it's not part in here, but they'll probably specifically preclude any judicial or quasi-judicial meetings. You can look for definitions on that. And again, you can see, no executive session. You can't vote on what you did, no, the public didn't hear via that. Because again, they're saying it has to be public. What's going on has to be public. So, okay, I'll stop. I promise I'll stop.
Any other comments? And that being said, you came to this committee with a commitment to participate. You knew the time frame of our meetings and when the budget cycle transpires. Personally, I think you're making a choice to not participate and choose to do something else on your own.
Well, again, Bob, I disagree because this is, I'm asking to participate.
I understand that.
You know, at the end of the day, this committee can vote to change its bylaws or not. And again, I will, and let me back you up again. Forget about me for a second, you know. I might change my mind and be here all winter. You don't know. Nobody knows what my personal plans are. Forget all of that. As a policy, is it a good policy? And, you know, that's what I wish we would focus on. Get off of me. I wish the select board would get off of me too. Is it good public policy or is it not? Your personal choice, my personal choice is really none of your business. Is it a good public policy or not? I was disappointed in the select board because my recommendation is that they establish a policy for the town of Raymond. What they chose to do is just change their own bylaws and punt it back to us. I think that's bad public policy. I felt they should have come, and again, if it was, we're not going to do this, and they voted on it, that's the end of the discussion. I wish they'd taken the responsibility for the entire town. But now what they've done is they've left it to every single bloody committee and elected official to do on their own. I think that's bad public policy. So again, you know, I think that if there are no more comments, we should just, if there's a motion or not, we go from there.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move we allow remote participation with the 5 conditions. Do you want me to repeat those? And add a 6th condition, that a quorum must be physically present.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
No, any other discussion?
Yeah, I would highly recommend we vote against this. It's not easy to do. It doesn't allow for interaction, which you have when you're sitting around the table. And I'm sorry, I've seen it done. It's not easy. It's dysfunctional, actually. And you know what? I got written in to serve on this committee, and I made the commitment I'm going to be here. And you know, I may not be here at times for whatever reason, but if I'm around, I'm going to be here. And I also want to reiterate, it's not in our bylaws. So if you want to do it, make a motion to change the bylaws. I don't know, what is the bylaw change in Maine? You have to go to a public hearing, or?
Bylaw change means, or in this case, it isn't a bylaw, it's an ordinance, so it means town meeting.
Right. So.
And what we're doing is voting for procedures for the Budget Finance Committee itself, which we are required to do at the first meeting of the year.
And if you agree with me that you follow Robert's rules, it's pretty clear.
Any other discussion?
mean, for what it's worth, it's tough to have to make a decision on the spot like this. I wish we could do, you know, have a little bit more time, I guess, to think about the consequences of allowing it versus not. Right now, I'm kind of open to the idea, but also negligent to some of the doors that might open.
Hey, we did just fine with 3 selectmen.
Crystal?
I wish that I could support you, because I do really
But
like
again, you have to
but
vote your
I
conscience.
do
You
agree
have
with
to
Joe,
You have to vote the way you need to
and I
vote.
do feel like you're younger.
More progressive.
And you would think that I would want to do stuff online or remotely, but I really do feel the importance of face-to-face contact, and I really do feel like you do miss stuff doing stuff online. I just really do, and I think that this is really important thing that we do for our town. I think it's important to have you present. I really do.
Can I ask a question, please? If we were to look to have an ordinance change, that wouldn't be in effect for this coming budget cycle. It could be approved in the next ordinance town meeting.
That's correct.
So that would be a long road.
Again, in terms of process, forget the issue. I think what the select board made clear is they don't want to deal with it. They want us to deal with it. And to me, that's not, we're not changing the charter or the quorum or the voting procedures. We're just talking about remote attendance. So I think in the manner in which it was punted back to us, I think it's our decision, not an ordinance change. That said, again, you know, we make our cases just like we do everything, Crystal. And you make the vote that you feel you need to make. I mean, believe me, I accept when there's fair public participation, outcomes of votes. Again, in this particular issue, it's very symptomatic of how we do business in this town. You're being asked to do something with no background information, nothing on a piece of paper, and that seems to be kind of how we do things here. I agree with you, Kevin. A lot of this information was shared with the chair of the select board and also our chair, but somehow it didn't find its way to you. That's all I can say.
I don't really want to interject myself into this, but I would take a little bit of exception with the without documentation idea. We would have distributed anything that was provided, but this isn't really our initiative. So, you know, if we had something, we would have, you know, sent it out, correct? So, so I mean, I didn't have anything from Board of Selectmen
you know,
or from you, Sheila. So
I
mean,
beg to
let's-
differ with
let's stay
you.
on this
One
subject,
more
please.
thing. I requested information from the town clerk, which is a typical process. What she felt she needed to do is refer to the chair of the select board. So we can't have it all ways down, that's all I'm saying.
I was just taking exception to the idea that we do things without any kind of background information. I mean, in advance.
I said on
To
this
Kevin's-
particular, yes.
to Kevin's point,
And I
we-
apologize for
We
that.
try as a town to get everything in as many formats as we can out there for people
Yeah.
to see. And I do get that this is, you know, has some, you know, sensitivities, political and otherwise, and policy-wise. And so, I mean, it truly is something you all need to, as elected officials, debate and decide. And so, you know, if I had something to put in the packet, I would have.
Yeah, and Don, I apologize to every member of town staff for that remark. It was not intended at the
I
excellent
understand.
preparation that you guys
I don't want to
do.
I understand.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion?
Nope, I don't think so.
Dana?
We currently have a selectman that doesn't make every meeting. So if Sheila decides to go to wherever, does that mean if she misses 3 meetings, she's gonna have to resign?
Not unless she's challenged,
Not unless I'm what?
not unless someone challenges you missing 3 meetings.
Well, and there's a process for excused absences also.
I'd like to move the question. Those interested in allowing or pursuing remote participation? I have 3. All those those against? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approving the minutes from our meeting on April 30th, our voting meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on the minutes?
Thank you, Sue.
Corrections, omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I would abstain.
Any opposed? All in favor?
2 abstentions.
And 2 exceptions. Now we're going to review the special town meeting warrant article, and I'm going to allow you guys to do your presentation, or is there any discussion that needs to be made?
Well, it's up to you. I submitted a brief memo that came from the last Board of Selectmen e-packet. The Reader's Digest version on this is that, like so many municipal projects, I like the term all delivered municipal speed. This one's taken about 2 years and some months to get to you. We've been studying it as a group of communities, that's Standish and Wyndham, Gorham and Raymond. And so we're working as a group and trying to stay in sync with one another. You know, we've been more or less successful with that. At times we're ahead, at times they're ahead. Right now, we're probably a little bit behind those other towns, which have, I think, besides Standish, all secured their approvals. So we're looking as a group of municipalities to solicit bids together with our provider, which in this case is Real Term Energy. About 2.5 years ago, we got together and said, let's interview people in this business, look at this, see if it makes sense. We selected Real Term. I think they're working with about 35 or so other communities in Maine. About 40 communities altogether have already completed this project. And of course, the reason that we do it is for energy efficiency and associated cost savings. And, you know, maintenance ease, the fixtures last a long time. You know, smaller, I guess, reasons, but significant reasons are things like, you know, there's, when you do have to dispose of them, they don't have the toxic, you know, materials in them. And so anyway, LEDs are really kind of sweeping the country as the current form of municipal infrastructure lighting, safety lighting. And so we opted in our case for a thing called smart controls, which enables us to dial them up and down, so we can actually save even more energy late at night if we want to, you know, turn them back. If there's a need to turn them up, if say there's an accident or a critical incident on a roadway that's illuminated, we can turn them up to additional intensity. The system and the technology we have now is on average about 27 years old. The fixtures are about 27 years old. We're proposing 110 of them for conversion. The ones that are along 302 are 69 ornamental lights and then some miscellaneous box lights throughout the town. Those are probably, we're not going to do right now. We're looking and waiting for a better deal and a better retrofit technology. Because they're designed, they're expensive to retrofit, so they're not on the table. But we think from a cost standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to go LED. Overall, 40 communities have either done it or are doing it now right in Maine, and more communities joining. Casco just joined in with the Cape Elizabeth Yarmouth group, I guess. So there's pretty much Cumberland County is either complete or underway on it. And I think there's a little comparison of costs over a 15-year period, and it's a significantly less expense. And you know, one question might be the maintenance issue. Right now, we're talking about working with Real Term on an annual contract, which I think is about $2,600. The reason it's so low is that these things are, you know, super reliable, and you don't go up and replace a bulb. You know, I guess you just put a new fixture head on. So we're going to put, or we're going to buy spares and have them available, but we won't do it. They'll do it. At some point in the future, there may be a movement of towns to work together and have a, you know, regional lighting department. Some towns already have that, like Scarborough. I don't believe Wyndham has that function. Gorham doesn't have that function, but some of the larger towns do. So there may be an ability to work together with another municipality in the future. But right now it'll be Real Term, and they've secured contracts with a number of different communities. So I think that's going to be a reliable solution. So more light, less money, more reliability, no CMP.
So what happens to the, you know, and again, this is just anecdotal, watching the Portland Press Herald, the big arguments over, okay, so you did this, now all the underground
Right, that's a great question.
cable.
All of our lights that we're proposing are fed from above. So that's not an issue for these lights. Now, it is an issue with our street light
The
system.
ornamental stuff.
The ornamentals are already town-owned, and they're fed from below, and they are problematic. You know, we had a rodent issue this past winter, you know, wire got shorted out, and so we made the decision, which a lot of people criticize, because that's how it is. You know, some people can agree with the decision made, some are not going to, but the decision that I made, was to save the money trying to do winter excavations and locate the broken wire and fix it, to not do that in the winter, which kept the lights out a significant part of the winter. So that is a problem, and that's yet to be resolved and decided. I think Portland's fighting that right now.
Well, I think Portland, CMP backed off and said they
Okay.
would take care of that particular problem. I don't think we've heard the last of it, though.
But it doesn't affect these lights at all. It would be in effect with the ornamentals should we convert them, but we're already there. We already own the system.
So the 110 are just scattered around town?
Yes.
Or how many do we actually have out there?
Well, 110 streetlights that are not ornamentals or box
The
lights.
Cobra heads.
Cobra heads, yeah.
Okay, okay. I know the library looked into converting our fixtures, and we just couldn't afford it. you know.
Yeah. Well, that's what we found out with the ornamentals and the yard lights and so forth.
Yeah.
Joe?
So Don, what's the payback on that? It's 78,000.
About
The current electricity bill, if I remember, is around 21,000.
yeah,
a year.
22.5. It's about 4.8
Okay.
years, I think.
So, and where do you expect the electric charge to go to? To zero?
Oh, no. The electric charge doesn't go to zero.
The largest
Couple
part,
$1,000 a year, maybe.
the largest part of what we pay every month for streetlights is rental
Right.
of those streetlights.
Okay.
I believe the electricity itself is gonna go to, like, I'm gonna say around 5 to like 1. But the biggest part of what we're losing is the $11,000 a year that we pay for
Two CMP.
2 CMP
For the
just
poles and the lights.
for the poles and the lights, not for delivery, not for
Right.
supply.
Well, the poles are already there.
Yeah,
Right.
but
These are
they also
existing
go
poles.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still lease
So
them from
on
what I
page
remember.
page 48 of the
Yeah.
is a comparison.
I don't think I ever got that.
You want that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get anything directly, so we're kind of operating in the dark over here.
What's that? You didn't get
We
that?
didn't get anything directly for the Budget Finance Committee.
I sent
We
it
sent
to
it to Bob Goslin twice.
Sent this presentation.
So you didn't send it out to the group.
I did not see the,
We sent it to you twice. Here's the other, maybe we should, maybe we need to talk about our protocols. We
I have
use,
I have an entire copy here if you
well,
want
I've
to
got one
send
too.
that
There's the
out.
front page.
No.
I mean, I just need to see his
I
numbers.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
No,
I-
and Don, it's fine, and, you know, I've got to say personally,
Here's another entire copy, I guess.
when Don Willard says in the long term it's gonna save us money, I believe that. You know, I mean, because
So
I
this
know
is
he
page
keeps
one,
a
it
real
goes to
sharp
that page
pencil.
2, and there's the rest of it. I'll say that it's sent out to you all. I do apologize.
I didn't see it.
Bob, can I?
This is
I
current.
didn't see that.
Separate from this?
No, those are
Goes down
separate.
$1,000
There's 2 complete
per-
copies.
per light.
One's Kathy's, one's
The
mine.
delivery
Okay,
charge
and
goes
it
down.
has that page.
And it was in the e-packet, last month's e-packet.
So we're going from.
So it's
this
on
is
the,
15
it
years
was
So it's on the
ago
web.
as compared-
it is on the web.
Dana?
All right. I got that. What was the CMP proposal?
The CMP proposal is outlined on page
Okay.
49 too.
Now, who's going to supply the power for
Still gonna
those
be-
new lights?
CMP's going to supply the
All
power.
right.
and
Now, there's been a lot of bad news about CMP and other utility companies, but it's easy to pick on CMP and say they're overcharging us, but I've got a light like that at my camp, and I had it converted for absolutely nothing. It was converted. I pay $110 a year for that light, 12 months. And I don't have to maintain it. The maintenance part is what gets me, and another thing that gets me is why is this such an emergency that we need to do a special town meeting? I think we're taking advantage of the special town meeting because special town meetings are supposed, in my opinion, should be for emergencies.
Yeah, we rarely use, as you know.
And I'm sorry, Don, I don't wanna,
Yeah.
let me finish and then you can.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, we've had special town meetings on stuff that, and they're always scheduled when, either in the middle of the summer. Why do we have this meeting on October 8th when we have a November election? Why can't we let the people of Raymond actually fill in the blank and check if we're gonna use that money that, in my opinion, was designated to lower the mill rate, why should we be voting that? What's the emergency? October 8th? And we got a November election.
Let me know when you're ready for my.
I'm set. Go ahead.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, the principal reason is that we're trying to stay in sync with the other communities for collective purchasing, you know, buying authority and working together. This is a de minimis proposal in the life of the town, and I think it makes eminent financial sense. The selectmen, I think, agree with that. It's been 2 years in the making. It's nothing new. If people were alarmed about it, alerted by it, they could have come. We've talked about it for 2 years, off and on. I just don't think it rises to the level of significance where it's anything for anybody in the public to worry about as a special town meeting item. And I do get your point. I mean, Raymond in particular is very adverse for some reason.
Put it in the budget.
For special town meetings. But imagine if you're trying to run a corporation, a business, and you made decisions once a year, significant decisions once a year with your board of directors. That would hamstring your business. This, to me, just doesn't rise to the level of where it's anything to be too concerned about, and to have a town-wide vote on $78,000 to do something that is environmentally the right thing to do, energy-wise the right thing to do, financially the right thing to do, and the elected body thinks it's the right thing to do. If you're exercised enough about it, come to the special town meeting.
Then do it in November.
And I have another question. I know I asked about this exact thing during the budget hearings, and you said basically it was not ready for prime time. Are we going to lose our joint purchasing over 30 days?
Probably not. I mean, if we
Okay.
push out to November, probably not. But I mean, frankly, like for the reason I just outlined, I don't think it's. I mean, we're trying to stay with the program. We're trying to, you know, Wyndham's approved theirs through their council because they have a council form. Standish, I believe, is going to a vote in November. I believe is what they're doing. They'll be the last town in the pool, the last one to be completed. We were ahead of the other towns at one point in terms of the process. They've had some turmoil and transition in their, you know, in their town managers, and so they've had I think some difficulty keeping pace, but they have now caught up and gone by us. I'm just trying to keep us on track so that we are with these other towns and can participate during this opportunity. We cannot wait till next town meeting and be with this group. We probably could have gone to November, but I don't think it is of significance that it warrants a town, you know, like a ballot question vote. That's just my opinion.
Joe?
Don, I'm not concerned about the process. I think it's fine. What I'm concerned that if you get a vote on the 8th, when does the process begin to convert?
Oh, we're going to sign the agreement the next day or the day after, get it back to them, and then you know, as soon as we'll start right away.
The answer was on the last page.
Oh, it's on the last page. I wish you had the proposal. I really
Yeah,
do.
I wish we did too.
Yeah, I'm sorry
The
about
very
that.
last page, that's an email. 'Cause
Oh,
it said-
okay, that has
We did get the email.
yeah. Well, that has the selectmen's questions. The selectmen had some questions. I was
No, we
going-
didn't get that email.
I was going on vacation the next day, so Kathy posed these questions
To the vendor,
to the vendor.
and then they answered them, and then I sent them out again.
So just give me the answer as to when they will start.
I think it's the third question, isn't it?
Is it the third question?
CMP's got to take their lights down, Joe.
It's gonna have to be coordinated.
Yeah. They're not going to do it.
Okay, typically it takes 8 to 10 weeks to get all of the hardware, fixtures, fuses, and delivered to the site in order to start installation. So depending on when in October the special town meeting is, I would expect that all hardware to be on site no later than the end of December, so that the crews can start installing in early January based on your count of 100 and.
But the answer is they're going to start ordering the materials and getting the project rolling the day we sign the agreement, which is the day
Right,
after the town meeting.
and the total installation period is 5 days.
for all 110 lights.
Yep, they take them out, they put it in.
CMP
So there's
takes
no-
them out.
You don't,
Does CMP?
CMP
take
takes
no,
the
no,
lights down.
Real
CMP does
term.
not take them out.
Real Term takes them out so that you're getting, they're taking the old one out, they're putting the new one in, you're not going any period of time without
Waiting
the
and
street
stuff.
lights.
No, CMP's gonna let somebody else
Yeah,
take their
CMP,
equipment
you're
out.
absolutely right. CMP did everything possible as a major utility and a monopoly to stop this kind of action, because streetlights are a cash cow for CMP and other utilities. But through time and negotiations and I think the tide of inevitability finally, I think, dawned on them. So, but you're right, in the very beginning, they put these, criteria on anybody who would touch their streetlights as if they were something, highly magical or something that only they
Except
could deal
when
with.
they fall over.
And so,
then
but
it's a
so
whole
that's,
nother thing.
so those days are by, we're by that, the whole idea that the monopoly says you can't work on the lights. Our vendor will take the lights down and take care of them.
Kevin?
So first of all, I think that this is the way of the future. I mean, LEDs make sense. I agree with the process and moving in that direction. The one question that I had was, I thought I heard a comment a few minutes ago about we cannot wait until the next meeting or something like
The
that.
annual town meeting.
Next, to put it in the annual
meeting.
budget.
To be with this group of
which would
towns,
be
we'd have to
here.
join a different group.
Okay, all right, I just didn't
We
understand
could
that.
wait, but we'd been
Right.
with this group of towns for 2.5 years. I'd have to join a different.
But putting it on the November ballot for this.
Kevin, what I'm getting to is, I was trying to say is, what I think we should do is, wait, have it in November, and it's just one of those things that we should put it in the 2020 budget. That's where it should be. We shouldn't be using surplus for something that's not an emergency.
Any other discussion?
Surplus is to be used for major,
I thought if I could ask her, Kathy, what is the undesignated fund balance?
yes,
right now?
so the undesignated fund balance, the selectmen, it's $478.95. They've used $200,000 to reduce the commitment this year, $78,000 for the LED project, supposing this passes, which leaves an excess of $200,095. So we're
And that's still excess.
excess.
That's
excess.
over the $2
Over the
million.
goal. Over the goal.
Yes.
Why can't you use the selectmen's fund, the 75,000?
They could, but they.
Why don't
like
you
to
do that?
this.
It's not an emergency.
It's not an emergency, right?
Right.
Yep.
I'd like to read the article.
That 75,000 for the selectmen is for emergency use.
Yep.
Or unanticipated.
Unanticipated.
You could make an argument, but he's probably right, it's be a harder argument, or an argument.
Hey, I don't want to continue to slow things down, but I do want to ask, the $2,600 you mentioned for the maintenance, is that an annual cost?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's gonna go up every year.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the Budget and Finance Committee endorse the
Article.
LED article.
Have a motion? I would appreciate a second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Is there any other? All those in favor of the article, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1.
So once again, my apologies, let's talk about the protocol, can we do that for distribution?
Sure.
So I did ask Kathy to send it out again to make sure you had it, but I don't know did you send a direction to distribute it? You didn't, right?
I sent it to Bob the first, no, I didn't say to distribute it.
Okay,
I did
so
not.
that's maybe where the confusion is, but what we've done in the past with, I think, with Marshall and with Rolf, was that we would go through the chair and send, everything we sent to the chair then would be broadcast out, we would
Correct.
deal with one person.
Correct.
So is
And
that
the
still
same thing coming back to you.
coming back to you is you to me, none of the members, so that's where we thought it was out there, so I do apologize.
I must have missed it, sorry.
Okay. So continue with that protocol.
Okay, thank you. We will. Are there any committee comments? See no public comments. At this time, we'll adjourn. Okay. Thank you
Move
very
to
much.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second.
All those in favor?
Take your little candies with you.
Thank you very much.